The bones do rattle and the doors do creak. From out of the dark do the spirits speak. By the turn of the hand and the turn of the card, they write their intent upon the board, leaving a message plain from afar. But is it truth or trick that they have in store? In public or in parlor, they are made known, and all too many believe what is shown. They are the spirits, and this is the spiritualist movement, and this is their story. Hello and welcome to the Historical Humans Podcast. My name is Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by my fellow co-host, Colum Coleman. And we are going to be diving into the weird, the wacky, and the spooky. This is our Halloween special for the year of our Lord 2025. And no better way to have a Halloween special than to have a seance of our own. A commutation with the past spirits who participated in the spiritualist movement. Dun dun dun. R.I.P. Aaron.
I was this close to showing up in skeleton makeup, but I kept looking like Kiss, and I am not screwing around with their copyright office.
R.I.P. Ace. Anyways, we're going to be talking about a supernatural religious movement that spread across America and Europe from 1848 to 1888, and this burned like a wildfire. It hit one patch of dry grass, and it just took off because, boy howdy, does it offer quite a few number of answers to questions we have all had.
Yep. Now, by America and Europe, we mean the United States, England, and France. So, like, you know, your really old-timey, hyper-racist grandpa's definition of Europe.
Basically Victorian era, and that makes it even worse.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's like Europe, but it's only two countries.
We talk a lot about the Victorian era and the Victorian people, but they were some of the most death-obsessed of any generation in history, and they really made it known. I mean, we talked about...
These people gave the Egyptians a run for their money, and the Egyptians built one of the largest structures in ancient history to entomb one man. So...
The Victorians just loved death, they loved talking about death, and they loved just bringing death into the daily focus. And to some degree, it is just a general part of life, but here they took it even further. And this was because the focus was on making contact with spirits of the departed. And though the spiritualist movement hit its apex, its pinnacle, roughly in 1888, and has waxed and gone downhill since then, people still practice it, and it is still a part of the social dogma today.
Oh yeah, no, it had a resurgence around, I want to say, 60 years ago. Back when you had like the hippies and all the psychic stuff. That's this is where that comes from. This is the seed that grew into that. And it was a very just wild, unkempt bush in its heyday. Like, this thing grew like ivy.
My favorite part about it, though, is the seeds that were sown on early that led to this movement really partaking. Because, like any good story, it starts in 1848 with the haunting of an old farmhouse. There's a reason so many horror films are based around them.
Yeah. Now, listen, this thing is going to go like full Salem witch trial level of crazy, just right out the gates. It's rural America in a time before the internet. This is just to be expected with random bullshit. and so our story begins in a place called Hydesville, New York, which really does sound like it's named for Mr. Hyde from Jekyll and Hyde, doesn't it?
Oh God, is this really just like a Brothers Grimm story that's just been supplanted into the America social fabric?
Welcome to the Amityville horror here, people. Shit's gonna go crazy. So what's happening in Hydesville, New York in 1848 is there's a farmhouse in which the owners complain that they are frequently disturbed by unexplained raps in the night.
Oh no.
Because God forbid there be wind in upstate New York.
It's the ghost of Snoop Dogg haunting the farmhouse, just rapping in the night.
Yeah. he's he's coming in. He's gonna hand it over to Kendrick Lamar, and then what's that woman he cooks with now?
Martha Stewart.
Yeah, Martha Stewart's in the kitchen giving him a beat on the oven.
Of those two, one of them has been to prison, and it's not Snoop.
That's the scary part.
But yeah, when he says rapping, it's the like rhythmic rapping within the house of things banging on each other. So it sounds like someone is basically incessantly knocking over the course of the night, but in a rhythmic pattern, and that's one of the things that was noticed.
Yeah, and what's happening is essentially wind and objects blowing against each other and rain and just the cold creaking in this water-soaked wood of these houses, resulting from all the temperature differentials that happen in upstate New York.
Not to mention old farmhouses weren't they were built pretty sturdy, but they had a lot of air gaps, a lot of things. There was a lot of creaking and settling that occurred, and that probably could have explained a lot of this.
And so these new owners who move in right around 1848 have zero understanding of this and are freaking the heck out. When inserts our hero, the founder of the Spiritualist Movement, a young girl by Katie Fox, who in the dead of night, by her lonesome as this young girl, goes out into upstate New York and challenges this spirit.
Okay, hold on.
Wins.
A fairly young woman being interested in spiritualism and ghosts. Really, nothing has changed in 160 years.
Well, what do you expect her to be? A horse girl like all the other farmers' daughters out there? No, not like other girls.
No, she's just going to give you a tarot reading and challenge spirits. Don't get us canceled. We don't need the astrology girlies on us, okay? This is going to be one sound clip that's only going to boil up like 10 years after we publish.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. It's just going to come with me doing my catty little dance.
Hashtag cancel Colum 2025.
Proof I'm gay if you ever needed it.
Oh, and that's on the record.
Yes, it is. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, so Katie Fox was one of the new owners. She was one of their daughters. And she challenged the spirit to effectively a rap battle where she would tap out a pattern and the spirit had to tap it back. And they're basically playing 5-finger fillet with the knocking, waiting for one of them to mess up.
Oh my god, that has got to be the most challenging game of Simon Says.
Yeah. Now, according to young Miss Fox here, she uses it to establish a pattern of communication, 2 knocks mean no, 1 knock means yes, 3 knocks means I'm not certain. And the raps are then used to answer a series of yes or no questions.
Oh my god,
through which the spirit communes with her. The true horrors of its fate. You see, the spirit is one of the previous owners of this establishment who was brutally murdered here.
So they were just knocking back and forth in Morse, and then uncovered this mysterious murder horror that occurred.
Now, for some reason, everyone believes Katie, and they are no longer afraid of the rap tap tapping in the dark. Even though you can kind of tell that this story is probably utter bullshit.
Hey now, I would need to see evidence to disprove it,
And because this is Hydesville, New York, because this is rural America, the story of this courageous young girl spreads through the community like wildfire, and it just gets picked up. It spreads to the other farm towns and eventually into mainstream society. At which point, Katie and her younger sister Maggie Fox depart from Hydesville, where they begin to travel the United States and England, communing with your dead for a small price.
Th-
They
this
just went on fucking tour. They got famous. They got internet famous in the 1840s and went on tour.
No, you're telling me this is the prequel to fucking Supernatural, okay? These girls were the original Winchester sisters that would go around solving all these supernatural crimes.
Don't gender swap my don't gender swap Supernatural like that. The things are bad enough when they're two guys.
Yeah, no, this is the exact same thing. This is the basis for Supernatural. They just twisted a few details.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, they just start going on tour because everyone believes that these two girls have some mystical power in their innate, secret, womanly ways to speak to the dead.
I do hope to some degree that these girls were actually just very smart and well read to the point of like solving the girl's murder. I just wonder if she just looked at the family history or something like that and
she doesn't solve the murder. She just alleges that this is a man who lived here before who was murdered, and everyone kind of believes her because property records aren't really that detailed of a thing. And in a 200-plus-year-old farmhouse in upstate New York, odds are that someone at some point who lived there died on the property and was probably interred on said property because tracking burials is not a goddamn thing at this point.
No, and that is a good point, is a lot of times the internments did take place on the family property.
Yeah. So
why us as archaeologists have to actually do property research when we're about to excavate somewhere, just to make sure that there may not have been a few people dropped in the dirt.
Right. Grandpa Joe is buried at the place where the stump used to be.
God, I had that we could talk about this off the podcast, but stories of people being buried where trees are is common.
Gonna kill somebody for that.
But yeah, this is where spiritualism really came in.
Thing.
And again, this ties into a period of time where the macabre became the norm. You know, you see the rise of poets like Edgar Allan Poe, who preached about these supernatural things happening and in his poems and in his writings.
Yeah. Now Poe is kind of the predicator to this because Poe dies a year after these girls go big.
Oh, yeah.
They make it big in 1848, and Poe meanders his way to the grave to find the woman whom the angels name Lenore in 1849.
So they were just fangirls. They were writing fanfics.
So they kind of kick off because America and England and all these things, the Victorian era is primed for this. You have Queen Victoria, the like eternally mournful queen. You have all this obsession with things like how you died and how you were buried in your funeral. That is the forefront on the mind of the Western imagination. And so these girls having this whole thing of like, ghosts are real. You can talk to them. The dead have information they wish to impart to you. It's something that these people latch onto. And these two girls who are very, very clever young women. I don't believe they're particularly well educated, but they are incredibly clever. They are very intelligent. They latch onto that and they run with it. And in the 1860s, boom, the movement just blossoms.
Gee,
yeah.
It just help me here for a second. Something's on the tip of my tongue. That you're saying that this exploded in the 1860s. What?
Yeah.
I feel like something was occurring around this time. Something.
A song named Union Dixie came out.
Something. Like the American Civil War, which saw 600,000 American men and boys just killed in the course of the war.
Oh yeah. Yep. No, that is a big thing with it. And we actually talk about it getting big in 1860s a couple of different times here because everything just keeps coming back to the Civil War in terms of who makes it big in this movement, how this movement gets big, what's big. But at the start of the war, right at the kickoff, where it just starts to blossom. Seances have become a common practice in Victorian parlors. Houses have entire rooms dedicated to performing seances to commune with the spirits. It becomes the go-to party trick. Like if you are having a social gathering as someone of the middle class to like the upper class, you are doing a seance. It's the hip thing to do. It's what people are about. You know, it's like going to a rave without glow sticks. It just doesn't make sense to have a Victorian party without a seance.
Again, the Victorians. There's a really great book that we read as a part of our education called Death in the Dining Room, if you really want to talk
Oh,
about how much Victorian culture just centers around death. But you know, it really we're making jokes about it at a certain point, but there should not be any idea of understatement for how obsessed the Victorians were with death. I mean,
yeah,
war had been so prominent over the course of the past century because at the beginning of this time period, you're seeing just the tail end of the Hundred Years' War. You're seeing the Napoleonic Wars. You're seeing the Coalition Wars. You're seeing the American Civil War. Like, death has been so ever present that
yeah,
this is arguably like the most intrinsic time for it.
yeah. And to show just how centered this was in Victorian culture, in the United States, in just everything. Abraham Lincoln, sitting US president, embroiled in the bloodiest war of American history to that date, is partaking in seances. This is a man who is deciding the fate of hundreds of thousands of people every single day. Just lives are being ended like that. And what does he do with his time? He attends these seances because they are that ingrained in the culture. They are that important. There's that much interest in understanding death.
Well, also let's look at the fact that Lincoln's mother died when he was really young. Lincoln also had a couple of children die while he was in the White House.
Yeah.
Like, this man, when you say was shouldering the burden, he had so much on his plate. Like,
They do not have proper therapists at this point in history. This is the closest thing anyone can get to grief counseling.
well, it was either this or you went the route of Ulysses S. Grant, who took to speak into the bottle.
We don't talk about what Grant does in his free time. He's Grant.
You either became an alcoholic or you found some other method to cope or to get this understanding, or realistically, it's closure. Because at this time, especially around the US Civil War, there was such a massive influx of dead relatives and loved ones in distant places that created this need for closure. I mean,
Yeah.
also contemporaneous, the Irish famine.
Yep, the Irish famine. And there's also with the Civil War especially, the Civil War is challenging the concept of a good death in Victorian times. To the Victorian people, your good death is to wane slowly in bed, surrounded by your friends and family and your loved ones. Whereas age and illness takes you, you go one by one among the people who matter in your life and speak your final words to them, knowing that you are about to die. War does not oblige this. What war does is march you off hundreds or thousands of miles from your home and then callously and near instantaneously end you. There is zero closure. And so with the spiritualist movement during the Civil War, these Victorian people, these Americans are trying to reclaim the good death of their loved ones. You know, my husband, my brother, my son, my cousin died a good death. They did not just simply randomly in a callous universe get snuffed out of existence.
You know, and
That's what the spiritual movement is feeding into. That's what it's relying on. That's what it builds itself off. That's where it gets its momentum.
death is also just such a weirdly human thing to struggle with because just the entire concept of like, Where are they in the afterlife? Are they still with us? Is there still that connection? These are all questions that people for the entirety of human history have been arguing and going back and forth. And to some degree, that's how we get the idea of heaven and or hell in this ideology, as a way to explain, the afterlife, and the idea that it doesn't just cease to exist.
Yeah. The dead are present. The dead want to communicate with the living, and the dead have information that needs to be passed from the deceased to the living people. That's kind of the tenets of spiritualist movement here. That's the foundation that all this is built on, and it's a pretty solid foundation in the environment that it's in, because by the end of the Civil War, by 1865, there were 35,000 practicing mediums and 11 million practicing spiritualist followers in the United States alone. Now, the United States population in 1865 is just under 31 million. So this is 1 in 3 Americans is a member of the spiritualist movement.
Wow. We haven't had that kind of unity since.
Yeah, this is massive. This is massive. You can't get a third of Americans to agree on what is the best hamburger. Well, you've got a third of them agreeing that spiritualism is a thing.
Okay, but to add to your point, if we're going to have that argument, it's clearly in and out. Whataburger shouldn't be a conversation point in here.
I just want you to know that my connection is actively censoring whatever you keep saying for the burger, and I am going to back it, as is clearly a sign that the ghost of the internet is attempting to prevent you from communicating this falsehood to me.
That's the great part about me recording. That way, it's on the recording. People at home know what I'm saying, and I have just started a war with Texas.
Listen, he can talk to you, and I will not hear him, but you will. And he has a lot of power here as being the one with the recording software. I just want you to know that. Yeah.
Maybe you could do a seance to hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, I will not. I will not play back the recording in reverse to find the truth of what you are saying. But no. even with this, 1 in 3 Americans following it, there's 2 in 3 that are kind of against it. And the organization gets met with a lot of very heavy criticism, which is somewhat ironic because this is an innately religious movement that religion itself actively condemned.
Well, and part of the reason they condemn is because it was predominantly women and it was a very female-led field.
Yep. Not to mention, communing with the dead was viewed as a form of magic, and magic, in a lot of, especially American Christianity, is derived solely from the devil. Also, you're talking to the dead, which means that the type of magic you're performing is called necromancy, which is expressly forbidden repeatedly throughout the history of Christianity throughout the world. The only one who ever gets to perform necromancy is Jesus. It's banned. It's like the exclusive top tier of an MLM.
So the other part of that I think is interesting is, do you think the Salem witch trial witches were rolling in their graves? The fact that just under 2 centuries prior, they were hanged for practicing witchcraft, and then these women are gallivanting around the country communing with the dead.
Personally, I think the Salem witch trial people can shove it, because turnabout is fair play. If you are playing with quote unquote magic for the purpose of killing your neighbor and stealing their property, then having a bunch of crazy ass priests turn around and kill you and steal your property is fair game.
Is that not the most American thing though? Come on.
Yeah. Whereas this is more of like this is more of fraud at best. Like this is more of fraud. This is Wall Street, and as everyone knows from the early 2000s, committing fraud, while a crime, is not something you actually go to jail for here.
No, in some ways it's encouraged because it's like you tried to game the system. Here's
Yeah.
6 months with time served. Go about, you scoundrel.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Now, what's funny is there's an official decree from the Catholic Church in 1898 that denounces the existence of spiritualism and of spiritual mediums as devil worshippers, effectively, but in the same time declares that the Catholic Church is open to the funding of scientific study of spiritualist phenomenon like ghosts and seances. So we will condemn you, but we want to know how you're doing it.
it's also just very interesting because for the longest time, the idea of church and science were the antithesis of one another. They were polar
Yeah.
opposites. And then there's some points where the church turns around and goes, "Okay, science is good. Let's invest in some science." And then there's sometimes where they claim it's science like this, and turns out it's what we like to refer to in the industry as a pseudoscience, something
Yeah.
that gallivants around as if it were a real scientific field, and they try to borrow actual scientific terms and processes to validate it as a science when it's not actually.
Yeah. Now, for the Catholic Church, this is a great catch-22 because if the scientific study of spiritualism proves ghosts are real and the afterlife fucking exists, then they've won. They're right. You know, religion is real. And if it proves that these are a bunch of fraudsters, then the Catholic Church has won. They're right. You're con men. You can go suck it. So it's kind of this perfect little move by them. They're just, and the reason they do this in 1898, after the height of the movement has kind of passed and everyone's starting to calm the fuck down, is because that same year in 1898, the U.S. National Spiritualist, in 1893, the U.S. National Spiritualist Association is formed. And this is their response 5 years after the fact to the concept that this isn't just a set of beliefs that is running about among the peasants. This is an organized religion. And the church recognizes organized religions as a threat to it because it is an organized religion.
But for it to have a religion, there have to be certain, different contexts or things that they advocated for. Like because it's predominantly run for women, I'm sure it was also used to push for suffrage or
Yep.
abolition because women were pretty big on those two topics at that time period.
Oh, it is 100% push for that. At its core, this is a woman-led movement. Most mediums are women. If you think to, popular media, old horror movies, or even just the concept of if I say what is a psychic to you, the image of an older, possibly Eastern European woman is usually the first thing that comes into your mind. It is the stereotype. And there's a reason for that. Because guess what most of the spiritualists and things like that are? They are women. And this becomes, in the 19th century, in 1893, when they formalize, becomes the only organized religion to view women as equal to men.
Yeah, that just goes to show you too, because this was 130 years ago at this point by the 1890s.
Yep.
So
1893
you're
to
talking this
2025.
really isn't that long ago. Like that is 3-4 generations removed at best. Some of our grandparents' parents were alive back then, and I know that's weird to think about, but
Yep.
it just goes to show that a lot of change has happened over the past century.
Yep. And big reason why this movement, has this view of like gender equality and feminism and a lot of things that it's going to advocate for is because it's so attractive to one. Being a spiritualist gave you the right to speak in public on public matters on matters of import. You could say what you want to who you wanted, which was not a right that women had in those days. In the 19th century, a woman was reserved for the home, and her voice was reserved for her husband, or if she was unmarried, for her nearest elder male relative. So this allowed you to go into other people's houses, to go onto the street and speak to groups of people like a normal human being.
Nothing's more terrifying than a woman with a voice, you know?
And these women, they liked that. They liked being treated like humans. They liked being treated like respected members of society. In the seances, men of wealth, status, and power deferred to them. And so they get the idea that this is a pretty good gig. And it's a pretty nice thing to be treated with decency and respect. It should happen all the time. And so the spiritualist movement starts making a big push as a big kickoff for suffrage and abolition. That's often tied into a lot of the messages that the spirits conveyed. That it was a lot of a lot of these dividing lines between humanity is pretty fucking stupid. We all have souls. Did you forget love thy neighbor, you asshole? Woo! I'm a scary ghost.
Women should have rights too.
And because of this, the spiritualist movement pushes for suffrage and abolition, and they push for the first woman to ever run for president of the United States, all the way back in 1872. There's this woman, the spiritualist named Victoria Woodhull, who was herself a famous spiritualist. She had renown. She traveled. She toured the United States as a spiritualist. And with 1 in 3 Americans backing the movement, she said, now is the time. I should run for president. I have the power to commune with the dead. Can you imagine what our country would be like if the president could talk to dead people?
Actually, hold on. I have an idea for my next presidential campaign.
No.
Yes, come on. The spirit of George Washington came down to me and communed with him. I know exactly what he was saying to me, and he was saying that we need more femboys.
Listen. No, stop that. Keep that out of here.
That's for Aaron.
Not part of the conversation. That's not part of this conversation. But just think about it. This movement put a woman on the ballot for United States president 140 years before Hillary Clinton.
And also before they even had the right to vote, which poses a very interesting constitutional debate, which would later eventually become an issue with Margaret Chase Smith, one of the first women to ever be elected into office as a congresswoman. But it just it poses a lot of interesting debates. So the fact that she even got that far is truly remarkable.
Yeah, this is 50 years before universal suffrage, and it's, I believe, because of that largely. This is my opinion here as to why I don't believe she won a single state. Was because none of the wives could vote.
Yeah, well, she also was going up against Ulysses S. Grant, who through much of the Union had mass respect from the Union for winning the war as a general, and the Southerners because he won the war. Just a very interesting paradigm there. But yeah, she went up against one of the strongest candidates who ran for office in a very divisive time in history.
Yeah. And it's this movement that gives her the platform to speak, that gets the idea out there that women are and probably should be a valued part of public society. this is the dawn of feminism. This is the push. These are some of the early pioneers before that movement coalesces and organizes and actually manages to make things happen.
Ooh, okay. I did look up the 1872 election out of curiosity. She did
Yeah.
not make it to the electoral college votes, but also Grant's uh, running or like opposition died during the race.
Yeah.
So Grant was effectively handed a sweep.
Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, Victoria Woodhull's like, he's sitting there with his ghost, like, God damn it. They're just sitting there side by side, looking at him getting sworn in, like the hell, this bastard.
Here I was thinking he was just a popular man. No, his opposition died.
His
Oh.
opposition died. And she does try again, I believe, in 84 and 92, again, without successfully attaining an electoral vote. And by 92, the movement is starting to die. It's organizing, it's formalizing, but it's no longer the wildfire that it was because the United States is not actively trying to kill itself.
Well, and also you look at mass societal events that would lead to that. We see the peak of industrialization by that point, which also led to an investor into science and technology to help improve that. So people are becoming more educated and more well studied and well versed.
Yep. And speaking of education, remember we talked about the Catholic Church funding investigations into this shit?
Yeah.
Well, the Spiritualist Movement creates the field of psychic research, which is a pseudoscience, but it had to prove that it was first.
Hey, even pseudoscience has the word science in it, okay?
Yep. See, what happened is scientists see the Spiritualist Movement and they go, something is happening here, right? People don't just walk away believing they've communed with their dead son without something happening. Is this real? What's going on? And being scientists, they start applying the scientific method to all these spiritualist phenomenon, all these psychic phenomena, extrasensory perception, communing with the dead, mind reading, predicting the future. And it's a whole attempt to prove or disprove it. And they focus on all the common spiritualist claims, clairvoyance, telepathy, precognition, talking. We've gone over this a whole bunch. And they really, during this time period, start focusing on mediums. They start picking out various ones because these women are celebrities, the really good ones. They go on rock band level tours across continents. And so they're studying. And unfortunately, during this time period, most of the people who are the scientists looking into this are desperately looking for positive results. There's a lot of observation bias going on where the people who are interested in studying this believe that it's real and want it to be real so badly that they ignore red flags and accept increasingly flimsy evidence.
And this is what also leads to affirmation bias and becomes a huge ethical thing. With our experience in archaeology, it's something that impacts a lot of biblical archaeology, and that can pose a lot of issues in a lot of the things that get published. But it becomes an ethical debate because if you have emotional vestiture into something being real, you're going to tend to ignore outlying data points. You're going to ignore things that would oftentimes be seen as potentially contradictory in hopes of trying to validate and reaffirm your beliefs. And in that reaffirmation, you could find something that could have a plausible explanation, but you're going to fold it into your own belief to try and reaffirm that belief, that thought.
And there's actually a very famous example of this from the upper echelons of British scientific study. You see, there was a man by the name of William Crookes, who was president of the Royal Society during this time, which is effectively the British version of the Smithsonian. This is the British scientific old boys club, where if you were a man of knowledge and learning and you were British, you were either in this institution or you were a fraud. And so this paragon of knowledge and science decides that psychic phenomenon is real. This man declares it to be real. He supports it. He says that as the world's leading expert on all things science, we have declared that psychics are real. Specifically, through a case study he does on a medium by the name of Florence Cook, whom he held had the power of materialization. The woman could, in theory, conjure any object out of thin air in front of him, much the same way a magician pulls rabbits out of empty hats.
Oh no, it's the first magician.
And now I shall place the cloth over the wooden block, shake my hand, and huzzah, it's gone.
Hey, that's dematerialization.
This woman's just pulling coins out of people's ears like a child's magician here. It's just not that she isn't very good at her job. She is a very convincing woman. She has a whole, Madison Square Garden level for the time stage act.
Mr. Crooks,
but it's a stage act.
I think you have something behind your ear. Oh, yep. Look at that. It's a 2-pound coin. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, would you look at that? It's 100 pounds. Are you trying to bribe me? Why, no, not at all. Another 100 pounds.
No, pulls one out of it like his chest pocket, and as she's pulling, it's like the knotted together rope of just 100 pounds.
Just let me know when to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, he didn't take any bribes. He was just purely blinded by affirmation bias here. This man just wanted it to be true, and that's unfortunately what happened to a lot of the researchers for this, both in the 19th century and then later in the 1960s when psychic phenomena kicks off again with the hippies and the 70s and that whole revolution. The people who look into it are the people who already believe in it.
But like any good time frame, because this is one of my favorites, there were people who did pursue them and attempted to prove them to be frauds, and one of which is arguably one of the best magicians and escape artists in history, a man by the name of Harry Houdini, who used his stage magic tricks to reveal the underlying theater behind a lot of these psychics' acts.
Yep. Now, for those of you who might be thinking, Houdini seems like a little bit of a more modern name to be attached to this 19th century movement. Houdini lived from 1874 to 1926. Harry Houdini comes into his own as a stage performer and a magician in the 1890s, at the same time that this movement, although it is in decline, formally organizes. And so he's right there. He's got this, he's right there at this cusp of where it's like, we are a legitimate body. We are a self-regulating, semi-religious institution. And Houdini's like, great, I'm a newly famous magician.
Well, that's what he used to propel himself to fame, though, was he basically took this credibility that they had as this organization and movement, discredited them, and in doing so, basically leveled his own stock.
Yeah. I'm a newly famous magician. I'm going to end your career. And it's not because he hated them. Houdini was a believer. Like William Crookes. He is a believer in the supernatural. But he is also an extremely talented stage magician. So he can smell bullshit a mile away.
This is
and he knows all the tricks that the other stage acts are using to pull off faking spiritual phenomenon.
This is the modern day equivalent of Penn and Teller, though. Like their show Fool Us, they're basically, instead of going to the people doing the magic tricks, now they're just inviting them into the room and to do the tricks in front of them. But that's the same thing. They go, oh, this is how you're doing this trick. I know this. Oh, this is how
Mhm.
you're doing it. And then on the rare occasion that are like, yeah, you fooled us, that's how they're like, yep, this must be real then. I don't know how you did it.
Yep, yeah. It's very good. And like it's very fun. It's very fun. And like Houdini wants to be real, and he is increasingly irate with the spiritualist movement as time goes on, as he keeps debunking more and more of their lead psychics, their famous psychics, because Houdini understands cold reading. Houdini understands sleight of hand. Houdini was double jointed everywhere. He understands how to make things appear out of nowhere, how to bend your way in ways people wouldn't think is possible, to make things impossible happen. And he just starts exposing these people for fraud, and it becomes widespread. It pushes psychic phenomena into fringe science. It always was. It just he kills its limelight. And shortly before him, when he's only about 14 years old, he's still a very young man. He's not made it at this point, I don't think. In 1888, the Fox sisters get caught. Those two girls who started this whole damn thing confess to fraud.
Oh no.
They are caught in the act. I'm not sure which act they're doing. I believe they're doing one of the more famous acts of spiritualism, which would have been the table turning, where a medium guides participants to place their hands all on a table and begins to ask questions and guide the group and help a spirit commune with them by the table suddenly beginning to turn or vibrate or knocking sounds happen. Now, how this actually works is if everyone's hands are on the Ouija board and one person's hand starts to push it, the Ouija thing will start moving and everyone's going, are you pushing it? Are you pushing it? Nope, nope, nope. But you can lock that down. Same thing with table vibrating. I can kick the leg of the table to make a sound to get the answer I want.
It did get more intricate than that
And
to the where they had like tables on these spinning mechanisms. They had chains and
yeah,
ropes connecting a lot of it.
yeah.
It was
There were strings attached to everything in a lot of these places. There were some where you could knock the chandeliers out of the ceiling.
the theatrics
It
were a
gets
big
very
thing.
elaborate, but like in its most basic form, it's me kicking the table leg to make a knocking sound in response to questions I already know the answer to.
And a lot of times too, it's like vague questions that are just enough to give an answer to. It's very similar to what a lot of psychics do today, or to a point where you can ask kind of pointed questions that feel vague, but then when you get answers, you're able to go, "Oh, well, yeah, Charles misses you. You know, it's sad about the accident."
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
bullshit
yeah,
things
yeah.
like that.
It's like I'm sensing a male presence, 50-50 toss-ups and seeing the reaction and going along with it. No, no, something more, not a man. You play along with it.
Oh, I feel this
it's all for
strong
show.
feminine
And
presence.
yeah, and Houdini, who made his living around that as a stage magician, this is like trying to pull a carnival trick on a carny. It doesn't work, and it pisses him off. Like he does not. He. I don't know if he has particular choice words for the Fox sisters, but he tends to get some pretty choice words for people who are fake spiritualism, because in his eyes, and rightly so, you are defrauding people, and in a lot of ways, preying on the grief and misery of others. So he condemns a lot of spiritualists as vultures,
I
because
mean, rightfully so.
a lot of them were a lot of them were they're a lot of them would set up shop outside funeral homes and offer to be able to tell you about the afterlife of your dearly departed if you just followed them around the corner and paid them $20.
Come to my office and we could speak with your father.
I am here today because the lady of the house has sensed your grief and knew that you would be in need. No, you're not. You stand outside that house every goddamn day. You know, every 12 hours, the Undertaker comes out with a broom and shoos you off like a damn street cat.
No, no, no. You know that the Undertaker's getting a cut. Yeah, they're 100% in cahoots. You know, sure, Lady Cassandra can stand out front, because she felt a strong need to communicate for the low price of 19.99 per month.
The need, however, is located in her stomach. She needs to eat.
There's
Yeah.
markets for everything,
And
unfortunately.
yeah. And even though Houdini like extinguishes the light of spiritualism in the United States, that goddamn flame persists in the United Kingdom. It just gets really hard to stamp out. And that's because the UK's response to it, in terms of opposing it, is very different. In the United States, being the like consummate obsessive capitalists that we are, it's treated in terms of transactional value. It's treated as fraud. You are pretending to be something you are not in order to take money from people who believe they are buying a product you do not, in fact, provide. In the United Kingdom, they are pursued under English witchcraft laws because those are still a thing over there at this time. And so rather than viewing these people as fraudsters, as, you know,
she's a witch,
providing false identity to attain people's money. You know, they're not con men. They're not con men. No. They're witches. They're witches. So they're getting actively witch hunted in their persecution, which, you know, witch hunting doesn't exactly garner you a lot of support or a lot of stability, especially when the options are accept that this person can, in fact, talk to the dead or brutally murder them. Like, you know, there's no middle ground of, you know, arrest them, take their stuff that the Americans have. And so it takes a lot longer to whack-a-mole this thing out because the British are going about it on hard mode.
God, that's insane. Why are you in jail? Witchcraft? Oh, see,
Yeah.
I'm a fraudster. How long you have? 4 years. You? 4 years.
Yeah.
Just absolutely max punishment.
It's like 4 years. Like, really? Yeah. Yeah, it's going to take them 4 years to get me through the appeals court to hang me. Yeah. It's life in prison. The British witchcraft. And also a little bit too, like, the British are still very Victorian. The British are more death obsessed than the Americans. The Americans are death obsessed because they kind of share those cornerstones of Victorian culture as part of the English speaking world. And it's cemented in American psyche through the Civil War, which by the turn of the 20th century is an increasingly distant memory. The British are anchored in this stuff through Queen Victoria, a woman who will not die.
The Queen Mother is eternal.
Like, this woman is the reigning monarch of England from 1837 to 1901. So the concept of this, you know, sort of death-focused culture doesn't have a chance to really let itself go until after the turn of the 20th century. No matter how fraudulent and corrupt it gets. However, it's not dead. It's
the
not
dead
dead.
Never die.
Yep. Yes. Thank you, Lord of the Iron Islands. There. Do. It's a copyright. Because a century later, the New Age movement begins. 100 years after the Civil War, right alongside the hippie revolution and the civil rights movement in America, you have the New Age movement. And from the 1960s to the 1990s, psychics are back, baby.
Psychics back. All right.
They're on every strip mall. They're in every street corner. They've got rinky-dink little parlors everywhere. You can't get rid of them. And they are here to take your money outside that roller rink, my friend.
See,
Because,
that's why I
oh
like
my,
the Zoltan machines. You put like 50 cents in, and then you get your fortune.
yeah. Time is goddamn cyclical. This
Oh.
is thing. Yep. And what's fun is the New Age movement has a fun twist. Because can you guess what else is going on at this time to change how psychics are working?
Oh, let me guess. This was in the period just around the time of the space race, so I would look up, up, and away.
Yep, that's right. Psychics are no longer just here to look back and help you commune with your dead relatives. They're here to help you commune with aliens, to guide humanity's future. It's time for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It's time for everyone to call out to space and meet our glorious brethren in the stars. And oh, look, they've stolen your wallet. Yep. Yep. It's all about aliens now, too. Aliens will guide humanity's future. The UFOs are in the sky. Area 51 exists. We're gonna put a man on the moon. It's the Soviet satellites. It's everything. The Jetsons are on TV. We've got to talk to the aliens. We must become Star Trek. It goes down a whole wacky rabbit hole for this.
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who comes out. Yep.
1963 came out one day after JFK was shot.
I hate that you know that, and that's like one of your favorite JFK facts.
Look, it's one of the most long-standing TV shows in human history, and yes,
It's living the life he couldn't.
exactly, and they had to postpone its original launch because of it.
Yep.
Uh,
But yeah, that's right. The spiritualists get involved with aliens, and as anyone who is watching this in the 2020s would know, they kind of die out by the 2000s. The whole, the public consciousness shifts to technology and computers and the internet, and we start focusing on that thing. See Party Like It's 1999.
you also, I do think there's a new age version of this that's been proliferating, and I think that's the Ghost Hunters because it's very similar. It borrows on the same principles, but this time they go more into that pseudoscience area where they're using certain technologies like the EMF sensors, where you're
Yeah.
walking through a house and you hear the crackling or the voice that manifests when you have the listening device.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And one of the fun things too, with the 20th century resurgence of this shit is we do have to thank them for one thing. They're the reason we get Ghostbusters. Because Ghostbusters is 1984, and that is during like one of the final like this is only like a 30-40 year movement, so it's the final decade or so where like ghosts as a thing are popular, and it's kind of making fun of them. It's making fun of what will become the ghost hunters. It's making fun of the psychics. It's Ghostbusters. It's a comedy movie about scientists trying to catch ghosts.
Hey, that's not a bad concept though.
No, it is. It is a good concept. It's why it's a classic Halloween film. But it's just one of those things where it's like, welcome to welcome to why this film came out. Why was this on the why was this something that was made? Because it's on the popular imagination because this movement came back.
It's such an interesting topic to look into as well because it really did define a lot of aspects of American culture, and it's interesting because you see it spill over into other areas. That's very centered around this religious talking to the dearly departed, the conflict within the church, but it spilled into other aspects of culture 100%. I mean, we mentioned Edgar Allan Poe. American literature went through a very dark period, one that
Yep.
very heavily centered around death.
Yep. Oh yeah. The American Gothic begins about 15, 20 years before this movement comes out, and kind of I think peters out I think a little bit before the spiritualist movement starts to, as literature starts to change again, and the cultural movement starts to kind of follow with that. The cultural drift kind of begins.
But very much inspired. I think they're very much connected.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like Edgar Allan Poe died the year after the movement like had its official kickoff with the Fox sisters. So contemporaneous for sure.
But anyways, I think that's probably a great point for us to wrap up today's episode. Um, we got a few more interesting things coming up. In just a couple of weeks, we are going to be talking about the Rum Rebellion.
Yep. Why is the rum gone?
Where is the rum, Colum? Where
Yep.
is the rum?
I will not tell you.
But yep, so that is something you'll have to look forward to. Happy Halloween. Let us know down in the comments below what you're going to be dressing up as this year. Do you have a dress up idea this year?
So because of circumstances, I'm away from like most of my usual stuff for Halloween. So instead, I have ad hoc'd a Yogi the not Yogi, a Smoky Bear costume.
But instead of telling people not to smoke, you're gonna be handing out cigarettes, right?
No, no, I will not be doing that. I will not be doing that. I have his little ears right here on the desk to the side of me right now.
uh,
Smokey the Bear.
I think I'm probably gonna end up as a hockey player, but we'll see. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you in the next one, and we'll see you at the Rum Rebellion.